Got my new shoes. Man. Boy, I gonna...
Well, hello, good morning. It's like our audio is good. Michael and Israel here once again with another Tech Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, first, well, nice cold weather rolling in. We had, I guess, a huge thanks to everybody that showed up for the fishing tournament. The for fishing for Jamie. It was a good day. Ended up with some beautiful weather, and I hope everybody enjoyed that. And I think our mechanics that participated didn't spend a bunch of time working on boats,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
sure they probably enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, what's going on, Michael?
Well,
Gladden. So guys, if you've got questions, We'll try to get you answers. I've got a few. I've got one left over from last week, and then I went and found a couple. I've got one with a little visual. So if y'all don't have any questions, I'll throw a few out there. We'll get on to lunch. Um, 70 in Maryland going out Sunday. Yeah, it was.
Let's
I think
see.
it. I think it hit.
69 right now in Alabama, so
Yeah.
you've got us beat.
Yeah.
Wow. Supposed to be
Um,
74 today,
yeah.
sometime.
Yeah. This time of year up in Maryland, that's not a bad place to be.
Yeah.
But I think here shortly, I'd rather be down here. I'm not a cold weather guy. So, um,
What's going on, Shane? We have a guy that does boat wraps for us.
yes. Yeah, we've got a guy up in Fort Payne that typically he's the one that does all of our boat wraps.
He uses pretty good materials too. So.
Um, can't we can get Excel Graphics. That's the name
That's
of the
it.
place.
Yeah.
So we can get you contact info if you need to get a boat wrap. What's going on, Shane? And all right, so since Bo's on, I think this was actually your question. Correct me if I'm wrong. If not, ask. Um, so new boat to me. YDS says intake temp sensor, intake pressure sensor, and shift position sensor. No RPMs above 1800 or so when loaded. Idle, I can get her to scream. Any idea of the problem?
Okay, so what engine are we talking about? Because that helps me a lot. That'll be the first thing I want to do. I would say the intake pressure sensor. Um, the other thing I would ask is if those if 225 is it a HPDI SHO um, four stroke? Okay. So shift position sensor. A lot of times that's like a that'd be a code most of the time whenever the shift linkage is out of adjustment. Okay, so with that being said, um, if it's too far out of adjustment, if you turn the key on and it sees that sensor open, it's not going to give you all your. It's probably not going to run on all the cylinders, more than likely, because it thinks there's something wrong. So I would double check and make sure that 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 shifter is there's two lines, okay, and you have to adjust those lines to where they meet up perfectly, and then you have to shift it and put it back in neutral and make sure they're still perfectly aligned. So some of those engines, if they're out of alignment when you crank the motor, it'll run. It won't run on all the cylinders because it thinks it's in gear. Okay, it's protective kind of thing. I'm not familiar with the four strokes doing that. I know the HPDIs did that for sure. Now, with that being said, if the intake temperature sensor and the intake pressure sensor is an active code, like if it's got 225 hours and it said the last time that sensor, had a fault was 225 hours and it's an active code, then I would probably lean towards that being an issue. And that should be one sensor built in. It should be one sensor. And that's your intake manifold sensor. What it does is it checks your barometric pressures and the air temperature sensor, and that gives you your fuel map to start off with. So if that's a problem, then it will cause some running issues. Um, I have seen some engines backfire and throw that code.
Hmm.
Like if it's like an intake backfire while the engine's running, it'll spike that pressure and it will throw a code in that regard. Otherwise, you may have something. I always tell people if your engine's got codes in it and they're active, sometimes it'll make it easier to diagnose the problem. But a lot of times the codes may be an indicator of something else going wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to kind of read a lot of data to figure it out, like what the current barometric pressure reading is on the engine itself, and see if it matches the barometric pressure where you're living. And then also when your engine's running, that also pulls a vacuum or brings brings that pressure to a negative, and you got to make sure that information is also correct, because if you got an intake leak and it's showing not enough inches of mercury, then it's going to run rich or lean, and it may do all kinds of stuff.
How often have you seen with the Yamahas that like the problem is a broken sensor?
Not a lot. I mean, it's kind of rare, actually.
So if you see it, like you're kind of thinking there's some issue.
And I've seen some bad barometric sensors out there, especially if it's near salt water. The more you're near salt water, the more you're going to find wiring harness issues and sensor problems. And a lot of times it's the connection. So you may have a corroded connection on this end and a real open spot on this end, and things don't connect good. And I've seen people disconnect it, look at it, and put it back together, and it works for 2 months. Just from pulling it off and drag some of that corrosion off and sticking it back in, kind of cleans the connection. So, but that's where I would start.
What's recommended on any of those sensor connections? Any lubricant or anything like that?
Well, yeah, there's and you have to be careful on some of that stuff because and so that could be part of the issue of salt water, but. You have to be careful with Deutsch style connectors because a lot of those connectors aren't meant to have any dielectric grease on them. And so some of those connectors are so sensitive that dielectric grease, although it'll let electricity flow, it can slow it down. So if so Yamaha uses a very special grease on like injectors. So if you put a normal dielectric grease on an injector, it can cause malfunction. So you have to be careful what you use. Gotcha. But they do make Snap-on actually makes a terminal cleaner. It's almost like a file, but it's not a file. It's like mini brushes where you can go in there and it actually has abrasive on it and it can clean connections. And then they have a female end too where you can use it on male ends to clean the connections. And then you can use like like a terminal, like a liquid terminal cleaner on them as well. And sometimes that'll get enough of the stuff out that it'll work. Otherwise, you end up having to solder on new connectors. And I've had to do that in several cases.
Gotcha. So. All right. Well, Bo, I hope that helps. I'd say bring the boat down here, but that's a long trip from
we don't work on saltwater stuff. Sure. It's a luxury.
All right. Although I think we got a glass stream in on consignment.
Yeah.
With a twin.
That don't mean we're working on it.
Yeah, I know. But yeah.
I did this when I saw it coming in.
We do like the bass boats. And let's see here.
Oh, another thing I was going to mention to Bo is he mentioned you can make it scream while there's no load. And just keep in mind when there's not a load on the engine, it's really easy to get them to rev up. I can make most engines. I can take 4 spark plug wires off on a V6, and I can make it hit 6,000 RPMs because there's no effort involved for the motor because there's no load on it.
Gotcha. All right, Shane. How do you get Garmin to send a new foot pedal? All right. I know. How many Garmin trolling motors have we really seen through to?
We haven't seen a whole lot. I always
it's kind of.
I always tell people, like when the Lawrence came out, I was like, well, I hadn't seen people like, which one do you like better? I was like, I guess the one I've seen less trouble with, which was at the time Lawrence, but I've seen several now that's had trouble that have been hard to fix. We've replaced several components, and it's just hard to diagnose and hard to fix. So I can say that in that regard, when they're working good, they're working good, and when they're working bad, they're working bad. Now, as far as the Garmin goes, I guess I could say that Shane's maybe the first one I've seen the problem with, but we haven't
but keep them,
sold a lot of them, and one of the reasons we haven't sold a lot of them is because we hadn't got a lot of them in.
Yeah. So I think you got to understand the reference or the context of the statistics. We've seen a lot more Ultrexes.
So I probably think we've installed maybe 5 or 6 Garmin. So you got a 1 in 5 chance of it having
Well,
a foot pedal brake.
Shane does a good job with some of those new products that are out there and letting us know how
Yeah.
things are going. Hope you're still enjoying that Avid. Sorry to hear you're having issues. Certainly let us know if Garmin can't get you taken care of, if we can help in any way. All right. We doing CDEX now or have someone installing it?
Oh,
So we're not a CDEX dealer. I don't think we're formally signed up with them, but I since I've been here, we haven't done. We had a few with Avid that have come in, and they shipped us the boat without the C deck, and we do have a guy that can do it, but I don't know that I would say.
Yeah, but it's all pre-cut,
pre-cut, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I mean,
and we've had a few. Was it Avid? You said?
Yeah, the Avids.
The Avids are the ones that came in without them. So.
But yeah, that's. I mean, in the 4 years I've been here, that.
But if it's something you have that's like, if you had a boat that, like a aluminum boat or something like that, and somebody made a pre-cut version of that stuff, it's really easy to put in.
Yeah.
It's a matter of cleaning the surfaces and stuff. I probably wouldn't do it because there'd be bubbles everywhere.
I definitely would not have the patience, but so I guess the short answer is no, we're not a CDEC dealer. But some of that stuff, if we've got repairs on boats, warranty fiberglass work, any of that kind of stuff, we've got a guy that can get it done, but that's not something we do. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So Timmy, it was good to see you first off this past weekend, and we're happy to take care of your boat.
Yeah.
I saw some big monster fish he was posted on Facebook.
Was his arm stretched really far out like this?
I think it was more like this.
You have to keep it. That's what I always look at, how far their arms are out.
But at least it looks like he's having fun. That's so, right. All right, I'm gonna pull a question up. We'll jump in here. Get me off the screen. All right, so I found this in the Yamaha owners group. Lower unit oil, Yamalube, first time winterizing. Any concern with the color? Thanks in advance. I don't know if that's good enough for you to have any ideas. It looks like it's
got a little milky. I would say if all of it looks like that, I would start getting. I would get it checked out as far as get it the gear lube drained, get somebody pressure tested. I have seen a few instances where somebody got some fishing line around and then got it back off, and they got a little bit of moisture in there. And keep in mind, less than a half an ounce, I'd say a quarter ounce of water in a gear case will make it look like that, which would not hurt the lower unit at all. But if water's getting in and oil's getting out, I would be concerned, especially on a show, because of the way those bearings are. When it gets a little bit low on oil, if you make a long run, a lot of times you'll hear it make a little squeaky sound. And if it starts doing that, it's time to, and they're designed to keep water out more than they are to keep oil in. The way they face their seals, they face all their seals out.
Okay.
So you're more likely to lose oil than to get water in it. Which is why I always recommend everybody, at least get the gear oil changed once a year. And that way you don't, at least you're topped off all the way.
Okay.
So I've had to change several upper bearings because of loss of oil the oil looked great, but it lost a little bit of oil.
So probably a little cheaper preventative maintenance long term. All right. Any advice for us that are not winterizing boat and still running in the winter? Things we should be doing to our boat for running in the cold temperatures.
The biggest thing I would say is keep an eye on your prop shaft, making sure you're not getting any fishing line on it, and then keep an eye on the gear lube, because one of the biggest things I see, even all year round, besides the cold weather, is people getting water in the gear lube. Getting fishing line. People, there's a lot more people fishing now, and a lot of people that aren't necessarily courteous, and they will strip their line right there, on the water and dump
Right.
it. It's convenient.
Yep.
So you're gonna get fishing line around your prop shaft, and you're not ever gonna know it unless you check. So I tell people check every time they come in. The best thing to do if you on a Mercury, there's usually holes so you can shine it in the hole. On the side, Yamahas or four strokes, a lot less holes involved, but you can usually shine the back of the hub and usually see a little piece of the line sticking out or something. So I'd be cautious about that. The other thing is right now they're changing from summer blend fuel to winter blend fuel. So if people need to be aware of that are still running their boats, they may see winter blend fuel come in and it warm up a little bit outside. And winter blend fuel is probably really designed to run below 60 degrees outside.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get a 75-degree day, your boat may not run as well.
Right.
And it can cause some other issues. So.
Well, certainly, if you're in the southeast where you've got massively fluctuating temperatures throughout the day, then that definitely.
And the other thing, I've been doing a lot of research on batteries, charging, AGM, lead, all these different batteries. There's not as much out on the lithium stuff yet on how they want their stuff charged. But if you're running a lead acid battery of any kind, whether it's a glass mat or a gel battery or just a conventional flooded battery, and you have an automatic charger, keep that. They're telling us to keep them plugged in. Okay. All the time, because if you let the voltage get down below like probably 12.5 volts on these things, it starts sulfating, and it causes sulfate crystals on the plates, and it basically lowers the life cycle of the battery. And so on a battery where you would normally get 7 or 8 hours out of, you start getting 6 hours out of, and then 5 hours out of, and then they start calling and say, "Hey, my battery's going bad." Well, these batteries are really meant to stay above 12.5 volts all the time. So,
gotcha. And
then a lot of the battery chargers now, especially the Minn Kota, have a maintenance mode on them.
Yep.
And you push the button until 3 lights come on, or you hold the button until 3 lights go on. But the 3 light setting is a maintenance mode. And once you go into that mode, it'll charge overnight a different way, and it's supposed to help dissolve the sulfate crystals on the batteries, and it'll actually make your batteries last longer. The only thing I can tell you, the AGMs, it's not a maintenance battery as far as you don't have to put water in it.
Right.
But if you keep your charger plugged up all the time and you have conventional flooded acid batteries, then you need to keep an eye on the water level, because the more they charge, the more water evaporates out of it. So,
all right.
And that can give you a lot more years out of your batteries.
So the other thing I'll throw out there for wintertime, because I've heard you say it 1,000 times since we've been doing this Tech Tuesday, let your engine warm up.
Yeah, and that's
and change. Probably need to change that. Just remember that it's going to take longer to warm up, and then when you're out, you're fishing a bank, an area,
it's going to cool off.
It's going to cool off real fast because it's sitting in cold. It's cold soaking the engine. So,
and I don't know if water and fuel is more of an issue in the wintertime. I guess it's possible, but
Well, I mean, as you talk about where you get your fuel, now might be a consideration. If maybe you are hitting a marina consistently, now might be a good time to stop going to the marina, because their fuel's probably going to start sitting in those tanks a lot longer than what they were doing during the summer. So, I know a lot of the bass guys probably top off at gas stations anyways, but that's another consideration. All right, hope that helps. So this one I thought was kind of interesting, a little different, from a Skeeter Owners Group. It's got a 150 Mercury 4-stroke and thinking of buying a jet conversion kit. Anyone ever done this? Any advice?
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of people who've done it. It's just you're gonna it's gonna be probably see a 105, maybe a 110 after you're done, 110 horsepower, because you lose lots and lots of. You can get it back in some places, but
And I'm assuming he's doing it on a skeeter because it was in the Skeeter
yeah,
Owners
and
Group,
keep in mind that a lot of little bass tournament trails have outlawed jet propulsion. So
yeah.
I hate for somebody to go out there and spend $4,500 on a jet drive and then get out there and catch some fish and win and say, well, you won, but you can't have the money because you got a jet motor.
Well,
And they'll probably be dirty enough to let you go ahead and fish.
I think all the rest of the stuff I've got are super long, and I think we've had some good questions.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't have anything else, I think we're gonna jump on with the rest of our day. A massive appreciation for you providing feedback. Thanks, Shane, for the feedback on the Garmin's. Yeah, I mean you've only got a couple of years. Them and the Lowrance motors have been out there, so time will tell on some of those stuff. Certainly, we're still selling a ton of old Trexes. A lot of those going out the door. People seem to still like the reliability of those. But to recommend an additive to add to your gas when filling it up?
Well, yeah, Techron, which is what the mercury carbon, decarbonate is. They call theirs carbon guard or something. Maybe that's Evan Reed. But anyway, quick clean. That's what it is. Quick clean is their Techron, and then the same stuff Yamaha uses for their ring free. And then some kind of oily substance. Mercury's got their version of that as well, and Yamaha has their version of it. So the good thing about the Yamaha version, it has some of that in it already. So that's why they call it Ring Free Plus now.
Gotcha.
It's got some stabilizer in it, a little bit of oily substance. And really the oily stuff is for the injectors. It keeps them lubricated. And if you have Optimax, it's good to have some lubrication in there of some sort. Even if you throw, some of the older Premium Plus, like an ounce in your tank, whenever you fill it up, that'll keep those injectors lubricated and actually will make them last a lot longer.
And I assume that's in reference to the cold weather. That additive, I mean, that's something you recommend
all the time,
year-round,
whether it's cold or hot. Now, if you're going to store the engine, I would put some regular stabilizer in there with all that stuff. But if you're going to be using it pretty regularly, I wouldn't worry about the stay bill as much as the normal additives. Like I always tell people, there's people who can't officially say to use an aftermarket thing, but the people that have told me that say that they've used personally, they use some Startron in it too.
So one,
which I'm not necessarily promoting, it's just what I've heard.
Non-boat related thing that just occurred to me as you talk about cold weather, and this is the Navy guy in me. The a lot of guys that you use those horse collar inflatables, during the year, and they're comfortable to wear. Cold weather environment, it's you got a lot more layers on. Those aren't necessarily designed to maintain the buoyancy, and a lot more stuff can go wrong a whole lot quicker when the water and the air temperature is really cold. So you got all those layers on in the winter. I'm just going to throw it out there as a safety idea. Getting a good, no kidding, life jacket and wearing that in the wintertime may have a better chance of saving your life than some of those ring stuff. So not something I hear a whole lot of discussion about, and I know sometimes those aren't all that comfortable, but it's a very different environment when you got 6 layers of water absorbing materials, especially if you if you put waders on,
You got big old heavy boots on.
yeah, all that stuff fills up with water, and you are going to weigh a whole lot more than you would in the summertime. When you're trying to stay cool. So, I know it's not boat related. Sorry, but
life jackets are in boats.
I think that's again that's the Navy guy in me from getting it beat into me about cold weather operations. So, all right, guys, y'all have a great day. Thank you again, and we'll see you again next week.